Well, hi, welcome back. Now, this is comments day, and one comment I want to make first is about footnotes. Now, if y'all had your own book, when you were reading about that, shaking that canvas bag, you would have known to look at the footnotes, and it would have taken you right to Dad Man. That's a real, actual, factual thing that does happen out at my dad's place. My sons even remember that. In fact, at his memorial services a couple of months back, my son, as he was reading, well, it's not a eulogy, we have a celebration of life. As he was reading, he came to that part about shaking the can with the oats, and he said, "You know, I remember him doing that." Yeah, he did. He was very clever, creative. They had a couple of wild Mustangs that they rescued, and they did have one cow. Well, it wasn't a cow, it was cattle, beef, raised it for beef. And yeah, well, they had 10 acres. He didn't want to go stomping all over the place for them, so he taught them to shake, 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 and they'd come right back on in, get them into the barn for the night. It wasn't much of a barn, but protection from those, out in the desert of Nevada, there are coyotes. Well, and then the comment was, someone did ask, now this wasn't in the comment section of these videos, it was a comment that I got off my email. And she was wondering, how did you get started writing? Well, tell you the truth, it was my Grandma Annie Butcher. I remember as a child, just a little munchkin of a kid, sitting on the sofa, and Grandma would start her storytelling. Now the fireplace was going, and the embers would pop up and land on the back side of the fireplace, and she'd start reading the story. Now you look at those flames and you watch this story as it's happening, and as the embers hit, she'd add a bit of the story as they worked their way across, around, and through on the back of the fireplace. Yeah, she was a storyteller. And of course, bedtime, sitting on the edge of the bed, she could tell us a story about things that happened during the day, or things that happened when she was a little girl. Oh, she was a good storyteller. So I have that in my heart to be a storyteller, and I did, write a few plays as I was growing up. And in high school, I did enjoy the English assignments to write stories. I could do that. And then, oh by golly, but when my grandkids started coming, my first grandson, Luke, was like, I gotta have a story for him. And I had it in my heart about teddy bears. So Timothy Teddy Bear and his sister Tabitha, we have stories about them. And I would write them down. And then I thought, well, I know how to sketch. I can't draw real good, but I could sketch. So I drew teddy bear stories for them. Teddy bear pictures to go with the stories. So yeah, that would progress, and I got older, and I started trying to write stories. And I do have a copyright on a few. But it wasn't until the trilogy that I really felt good enough to get something published because of my friend Deal. Now she was a professional proofreader for manuals and stuff at her work. But anyway, she was the one that helped me get on track and figure out, well, you got this, what they're saying, why are they saying it? What are they looking at? Where are they? Describe where they're at. It's like, oh, so this is not just a movie script, it's a story. Yep, Deal was a big helper to help me get going and turn in just my thoughts and verbiage. I mean, I talk pretty good. So Deal's one that helped me actually make a story. And then, of course, well, if you had the book, you could read my acknowledgement page of all the proofreaders that helped me. Yes, so it's a process, and I'm grateful. So let's see, where are we? We have time. We have time for a little bit of story, so let's see what we're doing. Where are we? Oh yes, Ella was hungrier than she thought. So she had just asked for more, please. chicken soup and biscuits? Well, a little bit later, as they quietly were sitting around the campfire, Ella speaks up. What? No s'mores? Bruce looks her right in the eye and says, we need the space for real food, not the fun stuff. We don't have the advantage of a chuck wagon. Thomas is quietly standing in the shadows of some of the nearby trees, just watching and listening. Ella murmurs a bit. Well, s'mores don't take up that much room. Bruce reminds her, Champ has to haul all that we need. Ella sits up tall and says, well, don't be so serious. I was only trying to be funny. Just then, Thomas quickly returns and lashes out, and your being funny never is. It's just for you to be looking good. Ella glares at him and firmly says, I want to go to bed. Please, take me to my tent. Bruce gets up and heads to the tent to open the flap. Thomas reluctantly picks up his sister, saying, you best be better in the morning. I'm not carrying you up that mountain. He carries her to the tent and gruffly leaves her sitting on the cot. Thomas exits the tent quickly. Paul and Ralph look at each other. As Paul is filming this from his place on the rock, he disappointedly says, for just a moment there during Bruce's story time, I thought they were going to get along. Bruce looks at Ella, and his fatherly voice tells her, you will need to sleep in your clothing. No fancy PJs. Fumbling around to change will loosen those bandages. She agrees. Then, when Bruce turns to leave her, Ella speaks up, the stench in the corner. Bruce rolls his eyes, then turns to her and firmly says in his foreman voice, that would normally be your responsibility to take that out and dig a hole and bury the stench. This once and only once will I do it for you, because I need your feet to heal. He gets out the pot and takes it out, heading for the forest with a shovel. It's a military folding shovel, little and just right for packing and camping. Jack dutifully follows him. That chore doesn't take long, and Jack gets back to the tent before Bruce. Jack jumps right up on the cot with Ella, wiggling his tail in after some 11. After Bruce replaces the pot, he bids Ella good night. As he closes the flap, he gently checks with Jack, asking, are you coming or staying? Jack jumps off the bed and trots out with the boys. Bruce gently says, good night. After a pause, he adds, now you call me in the morning before you get up. I need to check those feet of yours. He hears Ella give a gentle sigh, and she says, yes, sir. Once outside the tent, Bruce quickly calls for the attention of the group, saying, well, we'd best be getting cleared up and hit the hay. Thomas gets right up and starts helping to gather up the food and anything else that has an odor to it, while Bruce is cleaning up the kitchen area. Then Bruce brings out the dinner bear bag. They fill it and take it outside the camp area to the tent tree that Thomas had found and hung the other food bags. Ralph is right there with them, filming what's happening. Bruce thoroughly approves of Thomas's choice of the area and the tree. Then with rope and tackle, they get the bear bag hanging up on the strongest branch high up off the ground. Ralph is a bit nervous as he asks, really need to do that? Bruce quietly answers as he anchors the rope. Yep, sure do. Ralph rather nervously says, I didn't know there were bears in the area. Bruce reassuredly answers, haven't seen any in a bit of a while. Better safe than sorry. We do have a group of rangers that are on bear watch. We don't go out on trail rides when we get a warning from them. Right now, we just don't want to invite any into our camp. Oh, Ralph lets out a sigh of relief as he says, oh, good to know that, thanks. Then they walk back through the trees in the twilight and cool night breeze. Thomas seats himself at the campfire and is adding a few small logs to the fire when he sees Bruce heading to the bedrolls. Thomas quietly speaks up. Hey, Bruce, Will you finish that story for us? Bruce turns around and wondering, says, What story was that? All three of them, looking at each other, nod their heads in agreement. And Thomas says, you were belly down in the mud in a French barnyard or something like that? Bruce smiles and quietly says, I see. Now that Ella's not around, you want to know what happened. Well, okay. Bruce walks out over and sits on his log, lowers his voice, and begins his tale, quickly remembering where he left off, as he says. Our patrol was just coming back from a midnight surveillance run. The French resistance guys were there by the farmhouse, and the Jerrys were across the field in a ditch, which of course we didn't know at the time. With Charlie in the lead, most of our guys made it through the field before the shooting started. 5 or 6 of us had to hit the dirt hard and fast. Okay, it was mud. To avoid getting shot to pieces. There I was, sure as bullets were flying over my head. I knew it was going to be my last day on Mother Earth. Those bullets were buzzing past my ears like a swarm of bees. We sure dropped into that mud faster than those flying bees and laid there, trying to do a belly crawl. Wouldn't you know, as soon as we would move, those Jerrys would take aim at us and the Frenchies would shoot back to protect us. I really don't know how long we were lying there in the belly crawl position, eating mud each time we tried to move and fell back down to that smelly muck of muck. I do know how relieved I felt when I could tell. You know, fewer bullets were flying from the Jerry side, and most of the bullets were coming from those Frenchies. Well, finally, bang! One shot, and it was quiet. Both sides quiet. We didn't know what had happened. Was it a trap to get us to move again? Wasn't sure what to do. I was just a kid then and scared to death. Well, death did not happen, as you could see. Next thing I know, those Frenchies were all over us, helping us up and out of that mud, across that field and into the farmhouse. Later, in walks Charlie, with his sleeve in his hand and one prisoner. Amazed, all three of them say, really? What happened? Bruce confidently continues, I'm not making this up to make Charlie look good. You can read it in his army records. The Frenchies gave him a medal too. Seems Charlie was taking Sergeant York as an example. He crawled his way down in a ditch by the lane and back into the wooded areas behind those Jerrys. Then, just like Sergeant York of World War I, he started picking off those Jerrys one by one. Only he didn't want to kill them. They were just kids like us. So he said he would aim for the shoulder of their shooting arm or a leg. Of course, their buddy would come, turn and get him, trying to get him. And well, Charlie just kept shooting in return till there was only one left shooting. Then one bang, bang, and it was over. Quickly, Charlie ripped off the sleeve of his uniform and waved it on the end of his rifle so the Frenchies would not fire on him. Charlie was sorry to report that due to circumstances, that of self-defense, and to save us, he had to kill some of them. He checked to see how many were just wounded and not dead. That's the one he brought back. He asked the Frenchies to go check if there were more only wounded. Turns out there were 4 more. That helped Charlie feel better. All 3 campers were spellbound at this tale, and from the tent, Ella softly says, I heard that. But if you don't mind, we're almost at the end, so I'm going to continue. Bruce quickly responds boldly and says, well, then we'll stop trying to be quiet. Thomas excitedly nods and says, wow, what a story, well, Uncle Charlie never told us about that. Ralph is smiling big. He got all of that on film with his night lens. Bruce lets Thomas know, you can get a copy of your uncle's record. The paperwork is in his room. Then you'll know I'm not storytelling. Thomas lets him know, I never doubted a word you said. That's right. I have seen pictures of him in his captain's full dress uniform, and he had a lot of ribbons on that chest. Bruce declares, and those stories are from just when I was with him. He was in a few more battle situations after that, including in Korea. Bruce stands up, stretches a bit, and then declared, "And now, boys, we really do need to hunker down. Morning comes early in the open air." They all agreed and pulled their bedding closer to the fire. Bruce hands Thomas a .22 rifle, saying, "I trust you remember how to use this?" Thomas smiles and says, "Like the back of my hand." Then Thomas takes the first watch with Jack at his side to tend the fire and watch for cougars. Bruce will take over about 2 a.m. Ralph and Paul are off duty now. Well, Ralph did get a good shot of Thomas with the rifle at the campfire. Then they tuck themselves into their bedroll for the night. Thomas listens to the hooting of the owls in the trees. Occasionally, howls of coyotes can be heard in the distance. The wonderful smell of woodland campfire caresses the evening air, and so goes the night. And that's our end. Yep. Just right there. Time for us to say bye-bye. And, well, we're not bedding down to go to sleep yet. Well, I don't know what time you're listening to this. Maybe this is your bedtime story. So thanks for staying in there with me. And thank you for being my friend. And thank you for being willing to go forth, trying to do what Jesus would do, and doing it with gentleness, kindness, and love for those all around you. Well, bye-bye for now. Love hugs from Grama Jean.